Welcome back, everybody. After that short adjournment, we now have the rest of the agenda to go through. So next up is agenda item 10, and it's the pavilion funding for the King George V play area. Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Leader. It does give me great pleasure to bring this paper forward. The new pavilion at Kgb will be the district home for women and girls football. Its sporting significance is shown by the support given by the Football Foundation to the council in order for us to obtain a significant grant to facilitate this. The pavilion will also provide facilities for cricket, which will include for girls and disability cricket. While the club room will be available for community and social events, it is being built on an area covered by Fields and Trust designation, which does require it to be a sports rather than a community facility, and the design does reflect this. Despite that, we are currently putting together an advisory group to work with the council on managing the pavilion and its use, which will consist primarily of sports organisations, but will also have council and community representation. The Town Forum will bear responsibility for the new pavilion. There are additional running and maintenance costs compared to the previous two pavilions, but the facilities offered are incomparably better, and it is anticipated that the net position will improve once activity in the building gets going. We have already had interest, for example, in using the pavilion for football training courses. Since the building was initially proposed, costs have risen. We're all aware of how recent events have affected building costs and so on, and the proposed change to the financial arrangements reflects this, with the use of both district and town forum SIL to help bridge the gap. So I'm very happy to recommend this to Cabinet, and I hope you can support it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Learning. I have Councillor Cook who would like to speak on this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to speak, and good afternoon to everybody. The Kgb Pavilion is another example of this council spending greater amounts than is originally planned. What's with the we cannot afford the budget to do this, the other versus we can afford to raise our spend on the Kgb from, I think it's 1.4 to 2.3 million as it happens. Is the council taking the opportunity with them, the community with them on this project? I note from the appendix that one of the risks that's cited is what factors, forces could contribute to detract from these outcomes. Lack of community support will detract from the success of the pavilion. Lack of take-up on the facilities could mean the diversity of people. In the meantime, what's happening to the North Walls Recreation Ground Pavilion? I understood that the amount required there was well under £1 million, of which the council was to provide modest funds for sporting and leisure budget funds on the amount of the Town Forum. The rest was to come from the community funded raising effort, which all seems so very simple. However, I think it was in 2020, it could be 2021, forgive me if I'm not correct on that year, there was a funding shortfall of up to about 400,000, I believe, on the council's figures. By comparison, the same report says proposals for additional pavilion facilities at King George playing fields in Highcliffe will cost between 1.2 and 1.5. Funding estimated at 700k could be available to support this provision, leaving a shortfall, I think, of about 800. The report for this meeting shows that the 2.3 now required, the Kgb funding is mostly council SIL money, supplemented by a grant, I believe, still apply for the Football Foundation grant, despite the fact that the grants may not be achieved. I sit here today, I have immense pleasure to say that I, as many of the councillors, were involved in the vision of Sport and Leisure Park. And yesterday I was there and I popped down to the drop-in session for the Bar End development plan to see the boards. And you know, it was truly, truly wonderful to see so many people walking through that door. And I'm really proud to say I was part of that, and many, in fact, all the councillors that are in this room today, whichever party you present, were part of that vision, and it's been delivered. So I'm proud of that. And others in attendance, maybe not here today, were also part of that. But now is a time, yes, to deliver these very important parts for our community, and we should all be very proud of that, and it is very much a dual effort. So what I would say, and I have a bit of a point really, is how are matters moving forward with the Allegra's ambition? I'd love to know what's happening with that, and I'm sure there are other people that would like to know about that as well. So it's a first-class facility that I know that is looking to be proposed, and it will complement the sporting bodies and the various people that will use it. Thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cook. Members, any questions on the report? Councillor Cutler.
I just want some clarity on the extra costs are partly the increase in building material costs, but I think it's also that the change in the specification to allow far better facilities as well. Could you just clarify exactly what that involved?
Yes. So as you mentioned, the construction industry is experiencing issues with construction costs, labour costs, but specifically to the Kgb, we're also increasing the green roof area, also adding in additional solar panels, and we're also putting in some lighting through the roadway, and we've also got other various BREEAM requirements as well, looking to achieve BREEAM Excellent on scheme.
Thank you.
Any further questions? No? Okay, any debate? Councillor Clear.
Thank you, Chair. Leader. Kgb new pavilion. It's noted in the report that it will cover cricket, women and girls football, youth football, and increasing use of local clubs, which is good. This project also is heavily backed by the Football Federation, not just by monies, or will be, but the need for the community. It's a magnificent site, and Councillor Cook, I know I've been with you when we've been to the old purpose-built pavilions. One is not fit for purpose, the other has no social use, so this new facility will serve greatly the community and everybody. It will be a great boost for players of all ages and their parents, and once again, and I know I keep saying it, but it will be a great asset to the community. And with the Winchester Sport and Leisure Park alongside, it can only be a great hub for community, sport and physical activity, which again can only be a good thing. Thank you, Linda.
Any further debate? Any summing up, Councillor Lerner?
Thank you. Just to cover a few of the points that were made earlier. I think this is an important district facility, and it also reflects some of the commitments that were made when the new leisure centre was built in that area. We are still moving forward with the North Wharf Cricket Pavilion, although that's much smaller and doesn't have the same backing from a sporting body. The grant, while yet to be guaranteed, has been strongly supported by the Football Foundation. They have very much encouraged us to bring an application for the grant forward, and are also giving assistance in ensuring that that grant does tick all of the correct boxes, for which we're very grateful. We are also moving forward with the Kgb Park Plan, and Allegra's ambition is moving forward with the same way. I think I will though invite Mrs. Croker or Mr. Todd to have a word about the Allegra's ambition funding.
We're working closely with Allegra's ambition. You may be aware that Winchester City Council undertook some flood alleviation works to those fields 2 years ago now. So we just want to ensure the impact on Allegra's ambition doesn't affect that. So we're just working with them at the moment. So it's a progression plan.
Yeah, that's what I understood, but it's good to have it stated publicly. Yes, so I think this is a great project. Clearly, we're not happy with about the increase in costs, but the choice is, do we stop it entirely or we find the extra money? And given the importance of this project, I think that we do need to move forward.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, costs of materials and labour are not going to go down anytime soon. And the longer we delay, then the more cost will fall on us. So I absolutely agree. Can we now move to the recommendations then on page 118 in the agenda pack? Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, we now move to item number 11. The Landscape Character Assessment SPD CAB 337. Councillor Gordon-Smith, would you like to introduce the paper, please?
Thank you. Yes, I'm very happy to introduce this paper. This is an update following a consultation exercise. The paper was up in January, and I understand there'd be listed in Appendix A the various responses. There were 14 responses received. I mean, some of these have been accepted and noted as such. There was one which was the effect of artificial light around developing horse arenas down near Shedfield, and the impact they have on the South Downs National Park. Very valid comment. And another one, for example, was people's worry about two open fields in Kingsworthy. And the comment marked here was that these more appropriately dealt with in village design statements rather than this landscape character thing. I mean, I think some people misconstrue what was the purpose of the document. And in Oliver's Battery, it was proposed to mark in various areas of potential tree planting. But of course, the landscape character assessment is actually a study of the existing, and not actually an action plan. And there's some other comments. Someone put in, farmland should be retained without exception in order to deliver food security. Well, an admirable sentiment, but not really part of the landscape assessment. And there's a lengthy section at the end, comments from various landscape planning practices, which I think the ulterior motive, one can understand, is to get the landscape quality marked down, shall we say. However, just to sum up, the Natural England commented, overall, this is a thorough and well-presented evidence base that will inform decision-making and practical landscape management strategies, which I think is a very, very adequate, succinct summary. I would therefore recommend this, propose these recommendations, and I would thank Katie Morgan and her team for the work they put into it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gordon-Smith. Any questions? I think we're all a bit questioned and debated out at the moment, aren't we? So, after the previous couple of hours. Okay, no questions, any debate? No? Oh, Councillor.
Just comment that there's been a lot of discussion about consultation in the last few hours, and this is an example where consultation has worked remarkably well. Good responses to produce a very good paper, and I would be supportive.
Okay, so let's move to the recommendations on page 142. Are we agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, we now move to item number 12, the parking charges review. Councillor Todd.
Thank you, Leader. So this is an important paper because it's the paper where, shall we say, finally the council gets serious about cars and air quality in the city centre and parking's role in that. The 2017 Air Quality Action Plan, which was agreed by Cabinet in April 2017, had two things in it relevant to today. One was that we should review current car parking charges and increase the cost to park in central car parks. And the second was introduce new parking charges or incentives to limit diesel car parking and high polluting petrol vehicles, brackets older than Euro 4 emission standard, in central car parks. It's not straightforward to do this, to put it mildly, and we need to get the details right. And so what we're asking for as a first recommendation here is that we consult on the key dimensions of what that will look like. So do we do it with a flat rate charge per parking event, for example, £2, or a percentage increase, as is, for example, done in Westminster, where they put on 25% to their car parking charges for more polluting vehicles. Second thing we need to do is to identify a fair criterion to say what are those polluting vehicles, which are the ones that will pay the charge, and there are other authorities that will look at to identify that. The level, is it something we just do in car parks or also on street? Is it something that we only do people who pay by Ringo? So a cheap, quick option would be to just offer a discount to people with a non-polluting car who pay on the mobile phone, or do we need to change our machines as well? Do we do the whole lot in one go, or do we do a trial area? I mean, that's possibly more of a logistical question about how we manage the capital and the flow of it. And then are there groups that need to be excluded? I mean, would we need a system that, for example, to make sure that blue badge holders can continue to park free in the centre as they can today? So that's one thing that we're asking to do, but it is at this stage a consultation. It's something that has been knocking around in our plans for ages, but it hasn't happened, and this is going to make it happen and help us make an important step forward on that. The second thing we're going to do, so the core idea on the Air Quality Action Plan and also the parking is we are trying to make sure that people continue to come to our city and they continue to use it, but that they park further out. Obviously, there will always be an exclusion of people with blue badge, where we're very happy for them to come to the centre, and indeed we want to make sure there are enough spaces for them to be able to do so. So what we're proposing to do on that is that in our park and walk car parks, which are Cattle Market, Worthy Lane, River Park and Chesil Street, it will be free to park for an hour. And we're doing that in parallel to withdrawing the free half hour on street parking. So that is actually quite an attractive offer. It means that if you arrive in Winchester from 5 o'clock onwards, it's free. If you park outside the air quality management area, it's free from 5 o'clock. Indeed, if you park in River Park, because the parking restrictions end at 5 o'clock there, it's free from 4 o'clock. You take a dog for a walk and it takes less than an hour, it's free. Okay, so we're actually encouraging people to come to the centre, but not go through the centre and not use the air quality management area. And at the same time, we're scrapping the free half hour for on-street parking. Interestingly, I found a newspaper report from when it was introduced in 2007, and I opposed it then because it would make air quality worse, and it wouldn't, my views haven't changed on that. There's interesting evidence that if you can encourage people to park longer, which this will do, they spend more. But one of the things we have, because we have relatively few on-street meters, is that there's an awful lot of people driving around trying to find spaces for them. And a recent report by the International Energy Agency highlighted that, quote, drivers searching for parking are responsible for 1/3 of the vehicle traffic in urban areas during peak hours, especially in areas with unpaid or underpriced parking. And our evidence, just from observation as well, is that people sort of driving in, they drive around, they try and find a space, and then they head to a car park. And it's generating a lot of extra traffic in the air quality management area. So the reason we're offering the free hour in more than 1,000 car parking spaces is to encourage, to make sure that that free offer is still there, but that it's further out. And what it will also hopefully do is also make more spaces available for blue badge holders, because the hyperpolluters, the people who are driving around looking for free spaces, will hopefully be taking the opportunity to park and walk instead. The last bit is a bit of tidying up on the season tickets. When you talk to businesses in Winchester, what you hear them talk about first when they talk to you is staff parking. That's actually what businesses talk to you about. That's the thing they're most concerned about. And so what we're doing here is improving our offer. We're introducing a quarterly season ticket in the Park and Ride. We will be publicising the Carnet wallet offer that we have, and that is very much based around, you know, the continuous and ongoing conversations we have with local businesses. So that is the sort of guts of what we have in front of us today. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much, Councillor Todd. And Councillor Kerr.
Thank you very much, Chair. I appreciate this administration, like all of us, are of course incredibly conscious about our environmental impact and the air quality, to making our city also carbon neutral as well. It's incredibly important, but a big concern that I have is that we can't run before we walk. It very much feels and seems in the next couple of items before us that we're almost trying to punish car drivers for coming to our city. Now, unfortunately, as a society, as it stands at the moment, like it or not, we are dependent on our cars. The technology just isn't there yet. We know the challenges with electric cars, the barrier to entry, the difficulty of installing the charging, especially the fast charging points that we've spoken about at the Health and Environment Committee to obviously help engage with our taxi drivers to go electric. But more importantly, there is also that cost of entry to go electric is still huge if you want to buy an electric vehicle. Now, I certainly wholeheartedly back the move to greener fuels, and of course we want to encourage those alternatives and very much welcome the idea of the Park and Ride, looking at electric buses for our city. But when it comes to accessing Winchester in the here and now, the right now, all these charges at the weekends, the evenings, plus the potential air quality surcharge certainly seems to punish drivers, which could potentially harm our economy. At the last full council, we were told that a lot of other councils charge weekends and evenings, but Southampton has much friendlier weekend charges, free before midday and after 6, so they don't charge all day on a Sunday. Every £2 to £5 spent on parking is another £2 to £5 not spent in our local businesses. I've been told one story by a resident who attends the cathedral on a Sunday and has to pay to park even though they're out of the city by 9 AM. That's money that could go into the collection to support the great work that our cathedral does. All these additional charges is money that could be spent in our local shops and businesses, and our national government did the best to support those in lockdown, but our businesses still need our support. I noticed the recommendation to remove the 30 minutes of free on-street parking. Why do we need to proceed with this right now when our economy is still recovering and our local businesses need support? I appreciate the alternative of an hour free at the park and walk, which is a great idea, but of course that doesn't fully compensate that being taken away from our businesses and people that may need to access resources on those streets. And of course that park and walk is only after 4 PM and 5 PM. Park and stride is obviously practical for some, but not always for all, especially businesses that maybe need a quick delivery. As a council, do we really need the cash from the 30 minutes that the on-street parking being charged for is going to bring, which means a business can't receive a quick drop-off, or maybe an elderly resident can't quickly pick up a prescription? Of course, I do know that Councillor Todd did say about blue badges, which is of course most welcome. But without those spaces being available, people have to park up, they have to go buy a ticket for a 5-minute trip, and our residents' budgets are being pushed as it is. I noticed the figures from the extra income, but right now, are we really desperate for that extra £40,000? I'm also concerned with the central parking zone season ticket rise. Obviously, that would penalise local residents and businesses when those budgets are stretched, and I believe some of those permits only work Monday to Saturday, meaning that some residents therefore have to also pay on a Sunday. Again, that potentially will generate £50,000. Again, do we need that so much right now? Or the potential impact on our communities and businesses, which will cost them collectively a lot more than the potential £65,000 of additional income for the council. So I ask the Cabinet to reconsider, what is the need to remove the 30 minutes 3, especially ahead of the decision at Hampshire County Council next week, which may well take this out of your hands? Is it for the money? Is it a statement of intent to try and remove combustion engine cars from our city when the alternatives just aren't there yet, which we very much hope they will be in the future? Is it to try and hit that carbon neutrality target? Why do we need to keep adding more expenses to our residents and businesses right now when they need our support more than ever? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kern. Some interesting comments there. I believe it's £2, am I right in saying, at a flat rate of £2 to park in our car parks on a Sunday, the whole day? So hardly hugely expensive. And also, no, we're not doing it for the money, we're doing it for air quality. And I think Councillor Todd has already explained that although we are getting rid of the free half an hour, we will be re-providing a full hour's free in park and walk car parks just a little bit further out. But I'm sure Councillor Todd will have other comments to make on that. Any questions on the paper? No? Okay. Any debate? Councillor Todd. Councillor Cutler.
Well, I'm surprised that Councillor Kern should ask about the rationale behind the half an hour when Councillor Todd had explained in great detail about all the research that suggests that people driving around town looking for free car parking spaces contributes hugely to the problems of air quality. And that is clearly the reason for this decision. In terms of this question on income, other than the 3% increase in fees and charges, which was necessary for as part of our budget, the rejigging of the fees and charges, as set out in this paper, are entirely around air quality management and attempts at behaviour change. The concern about businesses seems to be that, as I understand it from all Councillor Todd, I'm sure Councillor Todd can speak for himself, but as I understand it from all his discussions with the bid, the positives around improving the air quality the majority of the bid members feel that far outweighs any impact of car parking charges, but in fact they haven't found any impact. So I think that concern is misplaced.
Councillor Gordon-Smith.
Yes, I think we might make note of the fact that back in 1962 in Copenhagen, one of the main streets for Strawgate was pedestrianised, and there was a huge outcry at the time, and they were accused, the City Council was accused of being anti-car and hampering movement and so on. It turns out to be a roaring success, and the most expensive shops in Copenhagen are along that street. And on a decent summer's day, they get something like 80,000 people wandering up and down there, enjoying the delights of not having to dodge cars and so on. and it's a bold step to try to discourage car movement. I mean, I can't make a direct comparison between Copenhagen and here, not in a valid one, but you know, sometimes you do have to make a bold step to improve things, and I think trying to get the cars out, once it's happened, and once people enjoy the delights of it, there will be no looking back. So I support this.
Councillor Lerner.
Yeah, I mean, I think once again we've heard what the Conservatives always say about environmental issues. It's incredibly important, but there's always a reason for not doing it at this point in time. Just delay and somehow things will sort themselves out. We do talk about footfall when we look at economic activity, not the number of cars coming through the town. Congestion and horrible streets to walk in are the worst disincentives to coming into town there possibly could be, whereas quiet car-free streets make it easy for people to park a little distance out and walk in, and that will really benefit a lot of our shops who are on some of the side streets. Parchment Street in particular is affected by how horrible it is up St George's Street, a road people just don't want to walk up and therefore don't cross coming from the high street, but they do walk down it when they park in these, you know, slightly out of town car parks. Certainly it's something I do. We know that Sunday is an incredibly busy day in Winchester. In fact, as somebody who does walk and cycle around Winchester a lot, I often walk or cycle through our car parks, and they are incredibly busy. There clearly is not a current disincentive to come into town through our parking policies, but it is good to see on the cattle market on Sunday the number of cars that now park there because it is free, even though it is only a very small charge in the city centre, and people then enjoy a pleasant walk through the back streets into town. I think the aim to improve the air quality in the centre of our town is not only laudable, it's essential. You know, we've heard recently, you know, about the impact of air quality. People are dying because of poor air quality in the streets of this country, and I think all councillors should be doing whatever they can to stop it, so I will be supporting this paper.
Councillor Todd, do you wish to sum up?
Yeah, I'm happy to sum up. I think I just need to check with Mr. Hickman if there's a couple of issues that we just need to clarify, and then I will sum up.
There are. There's one reference that's incorrect in recommendation 1. It refers to paragraph 11.4. It should refer to paragraph 12.4. And secondly, we'd like to make a small amendment to the fees charges in Appendix 1 in relation to River Park Leisure Centre. On reflection, we were going to change we're going to remove or reduce the all-day parking rate from £15 down to £7.40. On reflection and in discussion with Councillor Todd, we feel that that might open that car park up for all-day commuters, and that's not what we want to achieve. So we're suggesting we retain we make the charge, an all-day charge, £15.50 in that car park, instead of the proposed £7.40 charge that was shown in Appendix 1, which makes sense. Makes sense.
And that's Monday to Friday. So, well, I can summarise. I mean, obviously I agree with those things. So, just to clarify the River Park thing, although it's park and walk car park, unusually it's had a £15 a day, i.e. same as the air quality management area car parks, charged to prevent all-day commuter parking or discourage all-day commuter parking. It's on Monday to Friday, and it dropped out of the table. We haven't made a conscious decision to get rid of that. It is something we can review as parking patterns change and people are no longer going there for the leisure centre. But we do want to make it easy for people to go to that car park and for there to be spaces that they can use to access River Park and it not to be filled up with commuters. So we will keep that particular price under review, but consider the paper amended to include £15.50 for Monday to Friday in River Park Leisure Centre. Thank you everybody for the comments. I particularly enjoyed Councillor Gordon-Smith's comments about the benefits of pedestrianisation, having signed off and made permanently cutting through traffic through the square. It is really striking, if you end up in the economic portfolio, that the people who complain about lack of footfall, lack of business in the high streets are the ones who have cars going past their shop. They're the ones who are under pressure, and it's the ones who don't in the pedestrianised area who are bring us different issues, but certainly not complaints about footfall. And what we see is that pedestrianisation, cutting traffic, improves the experience of shoppers, makes more people want to come here and enjoy the place more. And as has been mentioned, we have not put in place any loading restrictions, so if people are picking up and dropping off, they will continue to be able to do so from loading bays, and of course the blue badges will also remain free. The pop-in model to shop, somebody was joking about the fact the impact that this would have in the square, and they were saying, oh yes, I always pop into Bang & Olufsen, you know, Jeeves and Hawkes to pick up my suit or my hi-fi. That isn't actually how people are experiencing cities anymore. And I think it's really important that we have a proper conversation about value. It is free to park in Winchester on Sunday if you park in a park and ride or a park and walk car park. It is free to park in Winchester from 4 o'clock if you park in River Park, and from 5 o'clock if you park in the other park and walk car parks. So we have lots of free parking on Sundays and during the week, you know, and in the evening, and it's important to reflect that. So it's often characterised to say we have got rid of free parking in the city. We have not. We have got rid of free parking in the air quality management area and nowhere else. There are some things that we need to sort out that aren't within the scope of this paper. So Monica Gill, who was going to make a deputation, had to leave. I had a chat with her, and she highlighted something which we will be reviewing, which is that she lives in an area where there is a problem with the fact that we're charging for car parks on Sundays, but parking permits don't work for 7 days. And we've had that in Colebrook Street and various other places as well. That isn't within the scope of this paper. We, as Councillor Kern highlighted, there is a decision tomorrow at Hampshire on whether to take back the parking agency and remove it from district control. And what I agreed at my decision day on Monday is that we will come back at the first decision day after that decision with a revised plan that recognises we only have the parking and highways agency for 12 months and then a hard stop, and then we will come back with a work plan for that period that reflects that limitation so the decision goes ahead. The one thing I didn't mention about this set of charges, and that was made earlier but is reflected in this paper, which is this is the first time where we've made the decision that we freeze the park and walk parking, we freeze the park and ride pricing, and only put the increase in the central air quality management area. That is our policy. The Conservatives actually, at the time when the free half hour was introduced, increased my park and ride by 35%, and you know, got it completely the wrong way around. So our view is that, in fact, we're reducing the park and walk pricing, we're freezing the park and ride pricing, and increasing the city centre price. That is the approach we will take in the future. Our goal is to ensure that as many people as before continue to visit and use and enjoy our city, but they're parking outside the air quality management area. That's what this parking paper is designed to do, and thank you for your support. Now need to move to a vote.
Thank you very much. So the recommendations are on page 16A. Councillor Todd mentions a number of, couple of alterations to those, and I wonder whether Ms Kirkman might just tell us about this,
yes,
so we're clear about what we're voting on.
Yeah, of course, happy to help, Leader. So Cabinet, if I refer you to page 182 of your papers, and if you move down the chart to River Park Leisure Centre, it's second from bottom. if you move along to the very end where it says £15 Monday to Friday, £7.30 Saturday, current for over 4 hours, agreed from October says £7.30, and that is the box that I believe needs to be replaced with £15.50. I'm getting confirmation from the officers of that.
£15.50 Monday to Friday and £7.30 on Saturday. So it's the same as the box before,
Yeah.
but with £15.50 instead of £15.
Lovely, thank you, Councillor Todd. I think that's clear. In terms of the actual recommendation, we have updated the paragraph 11.4 to refer to 12.4. I also think, for the record, that should refer to Appendix 1, because that's where the charges are set out. So if I read that, the recommendation that changes to the parking tariff in Winchester Town, in addition to the previously agreed changes to city centre parking outlined in the 22-23 fees and charges paper CAB 3326, as set out in paragraph 12.4 and Appendix 1 below, be advertised and implemented in October 2022, with the exception of River Park Leisure Centre, where Monday to Friday over 4-hour parking should be £15.50. And that is the amended recommendation, one leader. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kirkman. Members, are we agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, the next paper is item number 13, agenda item number 13, and it is the Parking and Access Plan Improvement Programme, CAB 3329. Councillor Todd, you're on again.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, and thank you for the chance to bring forward this paper. There's really 4 themes to this paper. There's environmental improvements, there's the whole modernising payments and service, the safety and access, and then there's collaboration with the district. In environmental areas, we are investing in cycle parking. As you know, when we updated the parking and access strategy, we removed the word car to make it clear that it's not just about cars, it's also about cycling. And improving signage, because some of our car parks are a bit invisible, and we want to make sure that people are aware that they can park and save by parking further out, and that there's clear signage to help them do that. And we're also talking about using some parking funding to support better bus services. Much of that sits in other bits. The second thing is modernising payments. People want to pay with contactless. And that's how people are increasingly paying, and quite a lot of our payment system is set up with cash. The advantage of moving to new modern machines that also take license plate numbers is that at that point we can also allow for carbon and pollution charging, because we will know what type of vehicles people are in, and also longer term enable us to go paperless as well, which means less maintenance and again is all more efficient. One of the things we also want to do is, because some of our car parks don't have a very good mobile signal, is make sure that we have Wi-Fi in those car parks where there isn't a good signal, particularly multi-storey ones, so that people are always able to pay with their phone if that's what they choose to do so. And we're going to equip our civil enforcement officers with their equipment they need to work with this sort of cashless, wireless type payments to make sure they have the equipment they need to do their job properly. The third area is safety and access, and an important one here is Garnier Road. Garnier Road is quite a rubbly car park at the moment, and it's a real missed opportunity for people with disabilities who can't go that far, but would actually enjoy, for example, in a wheelchair or even in a short walk, being able to enjoy the Handlebar Cafe, the Hockley Viaducts, St Catherine's Hill, the Itchen Navigation Heritage Trail. There's a lot of nice things in that area, but because the car park is quite rough and tumble, we're not actually able to have properly reserved disabled spaces and family spaces in that car park. So we're going to do a feasibility study to look at how that would work, and also look at how it would work with, for example, the St Catherine's Park and Ride. Second big area of importance is CCTV. We continue to get requests for better CCTV coverage. We need to keep our systems up to date. We also provide monitoring for other organisations as well. One priority that we know a lot of people are concerned about is bike parking, so we want to make sure that if we are putting in place extra bike parking, that it does have CCTV coverage so that people to act as a disincentive to bike theft. And we're also looking at things like better walking routes through the bike car parks and clearly marked. And then the last big theme of this paper is collaboration with the district. And we had some price changes at Albury Park. We've worked closely with the Town Council. We've been working to put in place joint parking and access strategies for all our market towns. There is an obvious threat to this. The county are talking about taking back on-street parking. And what we know from Lymington is that they've slammed in parking meters into a Georgian town like Alresford, opposed by the Lymington Society, which is the equivalent of the Alresford Society, opposed by the parish council, opposed by the district councillors, opposed by the county council. So absolutely across the board opposition, and they're going ahead anyway tomorrow, or at least we will find out if they do. So we, as an authority, remain committed to joint parking and access strategies. The county notionally says they are in their paper tomorrow, but if we look at what's happened in Lymington and what presumably could happen in Bishop's Hawthorne, Alresford, Wickham, etc., that may not be what actually happens, but we will keep working for it. The big one here that we are asking you to start off on relates to the Dean car park in Alresford. This has been fairly widely discussed, including at full council. What we are making an adjustment to the decision here, which is the problem at the moment with the scheme that we inherited, was that we weren't going to have ownership of access to the Dean itself. And we are very keen not to have a ransom strip between any potential car park and the Dean. And so this just gets you the agreement to cut the number of spaces while keeping the budget the same. I know there's a lot of interest in this design, which is why we've agreed with the developers that there will be a public exhibition showing how the car park and housing work together, and with the public realm and Dean itself ahead of submission of any planning application. So that's broadly what I'm asking your agreement to. I'm happy to take any questions or if there's anything that Mr. Hagan and Mr. Williams want to add.
I've got Councillor Kerr who'd like to speak.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak. First of all, I'll cut a lot of what I was going to say, because I think the Cabinet want to turn a lot of comments from my residents that are represented by the opposition into political point scoring when I or we bring them to a meeting, something I will never do. But ignoring the fact that I stress the air quality is important, more to gain a point of party politics, rather than addressing the concerns of the people who elect us, who come here to be heard and who we represent. So considering my cart before the horse point on the environmental side of this, that analogy of course being ignored last time, I won't waste our time with talking about that again, and I'll move on. Obviously I'll reiterate to my residents and the businesses their concerns were just brushed over, but I will comment on Alresford, and I will welcome the CCTV, I'll welcome the Wi-Fi, and I'll welcome the improved facilities, because I am happy to complement the work of the opposition and the administration when it is deserved. Talking about Alresford, I know for a fact there are business owners and members of the community who don't feel consulted on the Dean, who feel initial consultation has been slightly disregarded. People whose livelihoods, of course, depend on the project like this being right and, of course, fit for purpose. These things are a lot easier if you take people on the journey with you, as we've discovered today, and I appreciate you'll never get 100% consensus, but we can create something that will maybe please the majority if you consult people correctly on the big issues affecting them and take them with you. There was representation at the council by a ward member expressing the concern of Alresford residents and businesses, and that resident went away unhappy with the response, and still large parts of that community feel ignored. This design did raise some safety concerns, and they felt they were brushed aside. Of course, the car park is a vital piece of work by this council for the town of Alresford, and it has to be right. So I do ask the Cabinet to consider and commit to proper consultation on those major decisions affecting our communities. And I just wanted to add the final point that, of course, the movement strategy, a lot of emphasis on that was put on the park and rides, which I know are still a few years off development and being implemented. But thank you for everyone's time today.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Cutler.
I've just spotted another minor error in the recommendations for the deal recommendation 4. It's actually 13.2, not 14. Absolutely no.
Any further questions? Any debate? Councillor Gordon.
Yes, I'm very happy to see that the car park in the Dean is going to have direct access off the road. It's a huge advantage. We've had a huge problem with an easement argument in one of the other car parks. So I won't bore you with the details of it because we've been here for hours. But it's very important, and I think, yes, the number of car parking spaces have been reduced, but I think that's very worthwhile to secure this access. I would also say that the Town Council has listened to the concerns of residents for many years about this, and the car park arrangement is nothing new. And in terms of security, it's actually overlooked by a 3-bedroom, what will be a 3-storey house, apartment block on one side. So don't brush people's concerns aside. Sometimes one has to be realistic and look at them carefully. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further contributions to debate? Councillor Todd.
I don't know if Councillor Gordon wants to mention that he is a town councillor as well. I mean, I think there's an important point here about the consultation and engagement. We do, of course, consult with the town council on a regular basis. We've shared everything that's happening as we go through the process, and somehow, magically, probably due to the fact that we sent it to them, I know that the Chamber of Commerce is claiming that we haven't consulted them, but yet somehow have been able to complain about the details of the decision that supposedly they were unaware of. I think there's been a bit of confusion in roles here. The Conservative councillor who's unhappy about the situation is also chair of the Chamber of Commerce, and we've been very keen to ensure that we treat all bodies scrupulously fairly. Truth was that they explicitly didn't ask that we consult with residents, they didn't ask that we consult with the Austrian Society, they asked that we consult with their own organisation and with no one else. And that is why we have agreed with the developer, before there's a planning application submitted, that there should be a proper, full consultation with all stakeholders. And actually the group, if I was to have to put first in all of this, would be the residents of the Dean, since they're the ones who are most likely to be affected in any consultation process that doesn't involve them is a consultation process that I would support. And I don't agree with Mr. Councillor Kern's points that he made. We didn't ignore his points, we just pointed out where they were factually incorrect. And that is not the same thing. And if you are not able to cope with factual criticism of inaccuracies in your argument, well, that's a matter for you, but you may find it hard to get the traction that you want on council decision making. This paper, I'm glad, has general support, even from Councillor Kern, but I would ask you therefore to give the go-ahead with the decision. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Councillor Todd. Right, moving to recommendations on page 194. Are we agreed? Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we now move to item number 14, the final item.
Chair, may I just say that Councillor Kern left because of the way that Councillor Todd spoke and he had no right to reply. And so it brings this council into disrespect in the district by just speaking in that manner. I'm sorry, it was not.
I don't think Councillor Todd was in any way rude to Councillor Kern. So moving on, we're now item number 14, the risk management policy, CAB 3338, and Councillor Cutler to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Leader. Before you have the annual review of the risk management policy, which is appended to this report, the main changes to the risk management policy are shown at point 12.8. There is no change to the Council's risk appetite, Cabinet having reviewed it. I would like to add that we are working on improving the way that risk is assessed in reports, and that will come forward at some point in the future. And added to that, this paper was considered in detail yesterday by Audit and Governance, and there was broad support. There was a very constructive debate. And I think one interesting point we as a council should be very proud of is the fact that the internal auditors, when asked their views, pointed out that they use it as an exemplar that to other councils who have far less developed risk management policies. So I commend our risk management policy to Cabinet.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cutler. Any questions? Any debate? So we move to recommendations on page 209 that we approve the risk management policy for 2022-23. Its risk appetite statement for 22-23 and the appended corporate risk register. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. We have an item to note, which is the forward plan for April. Are we all happy to note that? Noted?
Noted.
Okay, so that ends the formal business on the agenda today. As it's our last Cabinet meeting, before we all go into murder, I would just like to thank members of Cabinet for all their work throughout the year, this municipal year, and also the officers. And it's been quite a Cabinet meeting to end. I should leave it there. But thank you all very much, and we'll see you again next year.